I am not sure what reality you are currently living in where the people in Gaza are receiving 300 food trucks every day. But let me educate you, darling. Now let's note for weeks I have been making videos about how Israelis are stopping aid trucks from getting in, how Israel has closed down borders, how the aid pier is shut down because it was a hoax, how there have been several aid massacres, but let's forget all of that and go back to this. More than 2,000 trucks are waiting to cross into Gaza. So much of the aid has been destroyed by Israelis that the UN has to continuously say, and now the G7 has now had to say, that the work of the UN agencies must be unhindered. They have to tell them like children because they won't stop hindering. This is a post from April. This is how bad the situation has been. That Israel's total blockade on aid since April has put 1.1 million Palestinians in Gaza on the verge of starving to death. Since April, the northern areas have been facing famine. Half of the population since April has been experiencing catastrophic food insecurity. And unfortunately, at least 30 Palestinian children have died from malnutrition and dehydration. More than 3,500 children under the age of 5 are at risk of death in Gaza due to Israeli policies on starving children. Most children under the age of 5 are spending entire days without eating anything. In May, WHO found that 85% spent at least one day without food. 85% of children under 5 years old. We're only talking about children under 5. That's 85% of children under 5. And now, according to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, over 1 million people in Gaza face death and starvation by mid-July. And we're mid-June right now. According to the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, more than 200,000 Palestinian children have shown symptoms of malnutrition in northern Gaza. 200,000 Palestinian children showing symptoms. Let's repeat that half of the population will face death and starvation by mid-July. And every day, the situation worsens with a steep rise in malnutrition cases. And as I mentioned, in March, it was projected that in May, northern Gaza would experience famine. Unless the Israeli offensive ended, full access was granted to humanitarian agencies and essential services were restored. However, as we know, in the months that followed, Israel continued to block aid, and instead, countries, many of which are complicit in this genocide, began airdropping small supplies of aid into the north. And by May, the average Palestinian in the northern governance was only consuming 245 calories a day. For 8 months, Israel has imposed a blockade on the flow of food, baby formula, medication, and other essential items. The total siege on Gaza is even worse in the north, with famine taking hold in March as tens of thousands of residents are trapped with little to no food access. Along with relentless bombardments and the deliberate targeting of hospitals, the Israeli military has used the starvation of the population as a weapon of war, according to independent UN investigators. Over 1 million people, half the population of Gaza, are expected to face death and starvation by mid-July. The report also warns of broader regional ramifications of the genocide, which risk exacerbating the already high food security needs in Lebanon and Syria. I'll make more videos on that. People are exhausted, frail, and occasionally collapse due to the lack of food. Across Gaza, especially in the north and central areas, it is now reported that hundreds of thousands of people are malnourished. So much so, they're resorting to drinking seawater to stay alive. That is not healthy and can kill you. And even when they can find food, it's extremely high priced. And most residents in the north can only eat bread, as flour is the only item that they can find at a reasonable price. This is a man-made famine designed by Israel to wipe out the Palestinian people. The United States and its surrogate states across Europe have been airdropping small amounts of aid for months, but it doesn't come close to sufficiently feeding the population. America's humanitarian pier that was used to slaughter over 270 people to save 4 hostages in a refugee camp has also been a colossal failure at increasing aid deliveries and has now since been shut down, with it being removed for the 3rd time in 1 month due to waves. Gaza is being starved as a method of extermination by Israel. More than 7,000 children already diagnosed with malnutrition. Malnutrition has irreversible effects on children's brains, which are still developing. These include tissue damage, delayed signals between nerve cells, and decreased new connections in the brain, severely impacting cognitive memory and motor skills. Once a famine is declared, it is too late. Many people will have already starved to death. While Israel starves Gaza, over 2,000 aid trucks sit at the Rafah crossing, unable to enter due to Israel taking control of the crossing in May and Egypt blocking trucks due to their risks posed to the drivers and humanitarian workers from Israel's indiscriminate bombings. They're killing aid workers. And not only are they killing aid workers, they're using humanitarian aid drops and retrievals as missions to kill, to murder. The ongoing conflict in Palestine is expected to further aggravate already catastrophic levels of acute hunger, with starvation and death already taking place, alongside the unprecedented death toll, widespread destruction, and displacement of nearly the total population of the Gaza Strip. And please feel free to scroll on down or look at my playlists where you will find ample evidence of Israelis blocking aid from getting in for months. Have a great day, and thank you for allowing me to educate you. It's been a blast.